The following program is a podcast1.com production.
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
To be able to swing like you do, and to have that swell Miss Liberty gal carrying the torch for you.
I wish previous administrations in my country saw what was happening and did something about it. They did not, but I will. From this day forward, we will compete on a fair and equal basis. We are not going to let the United States be taken advantage of anymore. I am always going to put America first, the same way that I expect all of you in this room to put your countries first.
You haven't a cent. You can still have things
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. I guess all these people who are worried about Donald Trump just being a patsy to the Chinese, do they have anything to say today? You are all sleeping, I hope, but in the middle of the night here on the East Coast, about 3 a.m., the president delivered a speech that was a clarion call of freedom and independence and sovereignty. 855-40-LAURA. How many presidents would have or could have the credibility to give the speech that he gave? He stood up for American interests. He refused to bow down to the communist Chinese bullying, the communist Chinese cheating, the communist Chinese pageantry, which people had thought, they're playing to his vanity. I'd love to know what they said on Morning Joe. Thankfully, I didn't watch it this morning. But I'd love to know what they said. I'd love to know how they see. We'll find out that they're going to expose themselves, the critics of Trump, as never being happy with anything he does. So they weren't happy when he was, so nice to the Chinese. That he was too nice. He didn't challenge them enough. And now last night, when President Trump laid down the marker, this is going to be a new era in trade for the United States. If they complain about that, then we know this is pure politics. That's all it is. They don't care about the American worker. They don't care what happens to the American people. This is about the Democrats regaining power at all costs. 855-40-LAURA. I'm going to play you a lot of clips from this speech. Greta Van Susteren is going to join us. We're going to talk to her about the rampant sexual assault and abuse allegations in Hollywood, and now a new allegation against Roy Moore. This is a 38-year-old, the one that's the most disturbing of all of the charges, is something that allegedly happened in 1979. And he's been in office, a friend of mine said to me last year, 40 years. So it is a little curious why Bezos sends a band of reporters down there to Alabama to find out what happened in 1979. To me, that's a little, I don't know. We'll see. If that is true, that he was essentially feeling up a 14-year-old when he was 32, I don't care if you're in Alabama. That's just it's completely unacceptable, and he should not be in politics. Never should have been.
Allegations.
Never should have been in politics. Mm-mm. But I received a lot of emails and a lot of tweets from you last night saying, and I see your point, just because the Washington Post has decided to take someone out, don't jump on the grave prematurely. Mm-hmm. Don't usher someone into a grave.
No, I feel the same way about
it's
the
unfair.
Louis C.K., all of these things. The difference is this. Roy Moore, we had no indication of these sorts of things. With many of these entertainers, because they're artists, you saw it in their work. Their perversion, their weird kinks had been manifested in their work for years. But Roy Moore, this is really troubling, and when I hear people say, well, this was like Mary and Joseph,
Oh, no,
he was
state
an older
auditor.
man.
How about this? The state auditor, Ziegler, Jim Ziegler, I believe that's his name, comes out and says, well, it's kind of a Mary and Joseph situation. Because Mary was a lot younger than Joseph. Let's try to get him on the show tonight, see if he has any further thoughts on this.
I mean, I don't think we want to invoke 2,000 years, the mores of 2,000 years ago to justify what happens today. Yes, Mary may have been a younger girl, but remember, she was a virgin. St. Joseph didn't go pick her up and drive her over to Bethlehem, for a snuggle fest. If I didn't lapse into sacrilege, I'd say what I'd really feel, but I won't say.
Right. So we'll talk to Greta because she was actually one of the few people to sound the alarm back in 2012. Excuse my voice, it's going. Back in 2012, when this Louis C.K., who is without a doubt, this guy is a degenerate. Just by his forget what he's accused of. I'm going to take that out of the equation for a moment. Forget what he's accused of. The guy is a degenerate because of the work product he puts out in the entertainment industry.
Filth.
This is why I never watched him.
Yeah.
Never watched him. Never. I don't think I've ever seen a routine of his till I had to before TV last night. I had to watch his filth. And we couldn't even play most of it on the show.
No, you can't play it. No.
There's a scene in one of his Louis shows. I didn't know him. This is how little I knew of him. I kept calling him Louis C.K.
Me too. We're both like... My grandmother used to refer to the Hulk as the Huck because she couldn't... She was kind of... I do think you reach a point where you can't process those...
Tired. I'm so tired.
The subtleties are lost on you.
But at least my children were really quiet this morning. Those children...
Oh, what happened?
Pounding on the wood floors.
Was the old sleep app at 2% sleep?
Oh, no.
What happened last night?
I turned it off because I'm so depressed. I turned it off. I'm so depressed about the sleep app. I don't...
Put it in the hallway, you'll get a perfect night's sleep. That's all you have to... No snoring. 500% sleep absorption.
I did put it on. I did put the sleep app on. However, it said I didn't snore because I turned off the sleep sound machine. The very calming crickets and chirping. No, I didn't have the... I had... Chirp, 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 chirp.
Oh, God, that would drive me crazy. I'd want to get a gun.
I had that sound.
No.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
I mean, I was trying to recreate the hippo sound in Africa, but I couldn't do it. Anyway, so I turned that off, so it showed that I did not snore. That actually does make me feel better today. I don't snore.
Proving my theory of yesterday that when you have dogs big as men in your room...
You know what the problem is?
That go...
Here's the problem. 7.5 years old, 9.5 years old, and deciding they're going to get up earlier than everyone else, clink those cereal bowls downstairs, slam every move I hear. And by the way, this builder I had who helped me build this house, one of the first things I said to him, okay? Yeah, that's the sound.
That sound.
Mommy, whoa, get my bag.
We're now doing the Mercury Theater here. And the aliens have landed. Agnes Moorehead joins us. Okay, come on.
Okay.
Well, that's what we'll do, just voices and sound effects today. We're taking you down to Alabama.
Okay, so
to the courthouse of
So I said
Judge
to
Roy
them,
Moore.
you must be quiet from Mama in the morning. Mama needs sleep because I am not getting any sleep. Do you think they listened to me for a millisecond? Boom, 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 boom. But I said to my builder when he was building, he's my ex-builder for a reason. I said to my builder, whatever you do, before you close up the walls, before you put all the boards on the floor, I want this house soundproofed. Meaning, when you have an open house, you can put all the soundproofing junk in, and it really works. I want a dead sounding, especially my bedroom and all the, some other rooms like the TV room. I don't want you to hear it. Oh yeah, no problem, got that covered. It gave me an estimate. I said, thank God, it'll be so nice to have some quiet. The first night I slept in this room, I'm like hearing. I should have had my face on a camera. What is it? What?
It's like Madison Square Garden.
Oh no! It is like a WWF full-fledged. He's doing Nico's doing the clothesline on Dima, slam. They're fighting, they're rolling. It's the cereal bowls. Where's the toaster? Oh my God. Here's the toaster! Maria! Oh, they're screaming. Oh my. And I'm so tired.
That's children in the morning. They're excitable. The day is new and fresh, and they're excited. Like you this morning.
It's not good. It's not good. Okay, so here are the questions I'm going to throw out at you. And we have a lot of Trump, and we'll bump out with the great Trump from... Is he in Vietnam?
Vietnam, yeah. Oh, no, this is the capper to the Asian visit.
Yeah, so what do you think President Xi is thinking? What are we going to do? We thought we got him for the red carpet on the Great Hall. It seems like he is very belligerent now. He seems very belligerent. Get the chief protocol officer in here. Shoot him. The social secretary, remove her from office.
Well, he did drop the marker in China when he said, look, I don't blame the Chinese. You've gamed the system a long time. You're looking out for your people. We're going to look out for our people, too. Yeah, right. Okay, and then he moved on. And he moves on. And they applauded. They applauded when he said that.
No, but you remember when he said that was like this. Yeah. I think they knew.
Yeah, they could feel it
They
coming.
knew, like, this is when Vito Corleone, it says, let's have a meeting. When he says, let's have a meeting.
Don't invoke my people.
Sorry, it's an ethnic slur. When Vito wanted to have a meeting with the families, it was never going to work out in the end well for the families. It was going to be someone was going to die in a revolving door. Okay, that's just how it was going to happen. And that's what I think the Chinese were feeling at that moment. This is all. Get the social secretary on the phone. She is removed from office. We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA. Roy Moore, is this late hit a sign of things to come? Will other shoes drop? He can resign and get out of the race, but his name stays on the ballot. And that's why I think the timing of this and the posture of this is really very difficult. It's obviously extremely difficult. If true, it's reprehensible. But he said he's defiant. He's not getting out, and he said this is a Washington Post hit job of absurd.
And he denies all the allegations.
Denies all the allegations. He's been married for 30 years. Yep. He married later. I think he was 40 years old, and he married a woman who was 14 years younger. Well, that never happens. That never happened. Well, what would have been weird if he married a woman 14 years older?
Here's the question I have for the Alabama listeners, of which you have many.
Alabama listening.
Has this changed your opinion of Judge Roy Moore? Will you vote for him or not, or do you think there's credibility here? That's the key. Yeah, the rest of the country pontificating on this has no bearing at all. It's about Alabamans.
And here's where things could be extremely difficult for the Republican Party. If he stays in, which he says he's going to do, he'll never ever quit because his name's on the ballot, and he is absolutely adamant that this is a Washington Post, Jeff Bezos orchestrated takedown. Because if you can take the Alabama seat, you can take any seat, and that's what he believes, and I can see that argument. If he's innocent of these 3 decades old charges, that's almost 4 decades old charges. But here's the problem. Right now, there is no time to print the new ballots. There's no time to process new ballots. The new ballots and the new ballots. We learned last night talking to a friend in Alabama who's a big-time lawyer. The Secretary of State or the governor, I believe, could move the election and delay the election on some grounds that are legitimate. We're going to talk about this tonight on TV. And if that happens, perhaps they can remove him from the ballot, but he has to be a willing participant in that. 855-40-LAURA. Louis C.K., did you ever watch that degenerate? The charges against him, Raymond, people say, well, if you say he's guilty, which I'm not saying, I'm saying his work product is degenerate and depraved, and you never should have had him at the
There's a pattern in the work. There's a pattern in the work of Well, I'm not going to get
Yeah,
into it.
we'll
This
get
is a
into the
family
movie
show.
that was
We'll do
going
it
to
later.
that they've canceled the premiere of.
Daddy, I love you.
That's a disturbing title in and of itself. So
No,
maybe
when you
that'll be
hear what it's
Disney.
about.
All
When
right,
you hear what it's
we'll
about,
take a
you're really
break.
disturbed.
855-40-LAURA. Is this just like Mary and Joseph? Don't go away.
If you want a fancy fan or a turkey born in Turkestan or a slave that's awfully African or a teapot early Ming, come to the supermarket in Old Peking.
The United States will no longer turn a blind eye to violations, cheating, or economic aggression. Those days are over. We will no longer tolerate the audacious theft of intellectual property.
Thanks to my wonderful sponsors and your support, I'm glad to say that we can provide this podcast at no cost to you at all. As a loyal listener of my program, please consider testing our sponsors because they're the ones who actually cover the cost to produce this daily show. So if you're a dog lover like I am, how about giving your dog, your best friend, a fresh, healthy, and nutritious diet? When dogs eat well, they live longer and happier lives. I'm here to tell you about NomNomNow.com, which cooks the world's best dog food. It's made fresh in the USA and delivered right to your door every week. Nom Nom Now's customized recipes cook fresh in our kitchen, delivering healthy nutrition you can actually see. Switch to Nom Nom Now and your dog will have more energy, a shinier, softer coat, and a longer, better life. Nom Nom Now really is the best food for your best friend. And right now you can save 50% on your first 2 orders of fresh, healthy dog food when you use my code Laura at NomNomNow.com. That's code Laura and save 50% on your first 2 orders. NomNom now.com. And code word LAURA.
Today, just like a schoolyard bully who's good at talking smack from a distance, he went to China, he backed down, he buckled down. That was an embarrassment. I was laughing when I saw that, but I was sad on the inside. He's an American president, and that's what he did.
Oh, really? Arash. What's his name? Arash Aramesh?
Yes.
He was a San Francisco, described as a foreign policy expert. I was interested in having last night someone on from San Francisco because I personally love San Francisco values and the approach to life in San Francisco, especially the approach to Trump, because I knew that would be compelling to our viewers coast to coast. And so I let him go on and on there, and then it kind of deteriorated because he was just so nasty about Trump. Did anyone see the segment?
Oh my gosh.
He was so nasty.
He yelled, and he had an odd way of speaking every now and then. He'd say, like, that's what he did. It's like he's a double agent, trying to protect mask the home language.
We'll play more bites from his.
He was overwrought, though.
He was very upset.
I was sad on the inside, Laura. Sad on the inside.
Yeah. I don't. He's just sad person. He's just sad. Period. He seemed. This is another part of Trump's speech today in Vietnam, which seems to just slightly contradict Mr. Aramesh's conclusion.
Other countries engaged in product dumping, subsidized goods, currency manipulation, and predatory industrial policies. They ignored the rules to gain advantage over those who followed the rules, causing enormous distortions in commerce and threatening the foundations of international trade itself. We can no longer tolerate these chronic trade abuses, and we will not tolerate them.
Is that part of what Mr. Aramesh said was bowing down to the Chinese? It's called strategy. And just watch how China reacts now. Stay with us.
It does allow me to go around dishonest media. And it does allow me to do that because the following is so large. Between Twitter and Facebook and all of the different things, I have so many millions of people. It allows me to give a message without necessarily having to go through people where I'm giving them a message and they're putting it down differently from what I mean.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. What was that from? What was that Trump from? Okay, that has nothing to do with Louis C.K., which is what we're talking about in this segment. That's a completely different topic. Greta Van Susteren's with us now. She has written a book about social media and how to use social media, and everything you need to know about social media. So that's her book. It's coming out next week. We're going to talk to her about that book when it's out, or we can talk about it now. But the reason we brought Greta on today is to talk about this revelation, which shouldn't have come as a surprise to anyone, about this Louis C.K., who is a so-called comedian who has been now accused of, well, he's been accused of showing himself to various girls and masturbating, and
pleasuring himself
in front of girls,
and he locks them in a room or corners them and
does
his business. I
guess.
He's done this in his act. He's mentioned this in his act for years.
Yeah, this has been going on, and the way he performs, he jokes about this. But Greta thought, why is this guy being invited to speak at the Radio and Television Correspondents Association dinner when he's said the most horrific things about Sarah Palin and her special needs daughter? He has a problem with women, in other words. Joining us now is my old pal, Greta Van Susteren. She's the author of this new book, Everything You Need to Know About Social Media Without Having to Call a Kid. And she's with us now. Greta, how are you?
I'm very well. And you've, Laura, you conquered radio. It's unbelievable. And now you've conquered primetime cable news at 10 p.m. It's stunning. It's stunning what you're doing. But anyway, congratulations.
Thank you. I think about you I think about you a lot when I'm hosting.
How about when you're driving home?
Oh.
Late at night, there is that, right?
Yeah, it's late, that's for sure. Greta, I want to make sure that people understand what we're talking about with this Louis C.K. A lot of my listeners don't know who he is, but he's extremely popular. Explain this to us.
All right. It was the RTNDA or whatever the dinner is, one of those big media dinners. It wasn't White House Correspondents, it was another one. And we all got our notices, our invitations to go, and I don't know, it's $25 a person, and all our networks pay it. But he was the headliner, and he had said the most incredibly horrible things about women over the years, and he had just said something incredibly horrible about the former governor of Alaska. But to top it off, he picked on Trig, her special needs child, and said something horrible in connection with him. And I mean, an adult picking on a special needs kid, that's who the media thinks is okay to headline the dinner. So I said I wasn't going, and it started a big fuss, and I got a call from someone who's on the board who'd invited them, and basically said I was a prude. And I said, a prude? I said, I just don't want to sit in a room and pay for it to have to listen to that. And they said, well, your network does. And I said, well, tell the network to spend $25 to some charity. I just don't want to spend the evening doing that. I don't care if everybody else does. And people were actually surprisingly, a little bit scandalized that didn't I have respect for the First Amendment? And I thought to myself, I actually was in court for years defending people on the First Amendment, and they're trying to school me in this. The guy was just rude. He was just crude. So now, fast forward to now, and the media is so surprised. Where have they been on this? This is no surprise. This was all, in fact, my spat with him about it was all over the media. It was in the Huffington Post. It was in, everything. And he wasn't a secret. He was terrible.
Well, so anyway, we actually found audio that we'll play later, I guess, because we don't seem to have it. But Barack Obama said that he was one of his favorite comedians. And he said, well, I know he's a little edgy, but I enjoy it.
Edgy?
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping the
it was after those comments about Trig, by the way, using the R word to describe a Down syndrome child.
And using the C word to describe how the Down syndrome child came into the world. These aren't even sort of close questions. This wasn't edgy, and I don't know. Probably my guess is that former President Barack Obama wasn't paying much attention to what he was saying because, look, he's a good father to his children, and he doesn't want that. But the people who really fell down on it is the media. The media to think that you need to get someone like that to headline the dinner. I mean, what message does that send to everybody across the nation that we think that's funny in the media and that we're promoting it, we're paying him to do that? So I mean, that's the message that the media is sending the American people.
Well, I think, as with Harvey Weinstein, they protected him because he had the right political views. He had all the right insults to all the right people. If you had said the R word and directed it toward a celebrity child of a well-known popular celebrity who is a liberal, they don't forget. I mean, they don't forget that. They don't really forgive that. But they look the other way with Louis C.K. because of his politics. That's what happened.
And none of it should be forgiven. And look, I worked at the Fox News Channel, and it's no secret there are a lot of allegations about what was going on 200 miles north of where I worked in New York. Look, a lot of the stuff that, when it is done behind closed doors. But someone like Louis C.K. wasn't even doing it behind closed doors. I mean,
that was his work product.
That's the problem. That was what got him hired. It wasn't. This was no secret. But suddenly now, I mean, suddenly the media figures out that maybe we should have good manners, and he is condemned, resoundingly condemned. But where was everybody?
We have another clip from, again, a lot of my listeners don't know who this is, but suffice it to say, he is one of the most successful and popular stand-up comedians and comedic actors in the United States. Let's listen.
I was with one really hot woman once, and she got very drunk and slept with me. And the next morning, I remember her looking down at me, and she was so horrified. And she just looked at me like, ugh, like I feel like she felt like she had raped herself with me somehow.
That's funny.
That's actually tame compared to the stuff that.
I know, we're playing the ones that are really tame.
Special needs child. Well, I think because you can't play some of the other stuff. I mean, it's the stuff that he said about Trig Palin, the child with special needs. You can't play.
Greta, what about this Roy Moore accusation? There are Raymond, 4 people who came forward. 5.
4. Yeah.
4. Some of the individuals were, I guess, 16 and older.
Between 16 and 19, and one was 14 at the time.
Yeah, and apparently
one's enough. That's called a crime.
Right.
Yeah. And in Alabama, everyone was saying, I guess it's not a crime to have a relationship with someone who's 16 and over.
How about 14? Can a 14-year-old consent under Alabama law?
No.
Probably not. Probably not.
No.
And that means it's rape. It's like that's the hard reality. That's the hard reality for
Here's the question, however. I will ask this question, and I did not endorse Roy Moore, contrary to what was reported by these newspapers that don't fact check, like the New York Times. Never endorsed him. I endorsed Mo Brooks in the election, who then didn't make the special election runoff. So this is my problem with this. These allegations, and the one that was the crime, is 39 years old. And he's been in public life for 40 years. And it's, just a month and a half before the election. Election is December 12th? Mm-hmm. It's just, and the Washington Post sent down a number of reporters to dig up whatever they could dig up. Do you have any, as a lawyer, as a former defense lawyer, how do men who believe and maintain their innocence, how do they defend themselves in these situations? They can't really, can they? Let's be honest.
Well, the courtroom is very different from the political arena. Very different. There's no question about it that if this were to go through the court system, it'd have an entirely different process. Even the burden of proof would be on the state and not certainly on the person who's accused, in this case, Roy Moore. But if this did happen, this is something that look, there's nothing worse than a false accusation. And if someone's been falsely accused, it's unthinkable. But the voters of Alabama will have, they will be able to weigh this and consider this, and determine whether or not they think he's falsely accused, correctly accused, and whether or not they think it is worthy of influencing their vote.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, the world is, this whole, it's so difficult right now. in terms of the courtroom is just so different than politics. That's all I can say.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that there are a number of things that I hope can come out of this period of swirling sexual harassment allegations. Number one, I hope people treat each other better and get a better handle on what should be obvious, right and wrong. Number two,
well, it's,
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's a lot about manners. You don't assault somebody. You don't be rude and say horrible things about it. And some of the conduct is criminal. Some of it is grossly bad, boorish behavior. Very bad, boorish behavior. It's stunning what's going on right now, and it's stunning that that we run the risk of demonizing all men. Not all men do this. I suspect there's some women out there who are guilty of a lot of bad behavior too.
Well, and women, I think, oddly, women with the pendulum swinging, women could in fact get away with this. Women could get away with falsely accusing people. Women can get away with themselves sexually harassing someone because they're a woman.
That's right. Women can sexually harass. They're perfectly. I mean, we haven't seen a lot. I mean, nothing. I can't think of any celebrity yet who's been accused of that. But the law doesn't just say it applies to men. If women harass, then they're going to have to face the music too.
Well, Greta, I hope your ears were burning last night, because I think it took me about 30 seconds in the conversation with our panel last night to talk about how you, all those years ago, see, I don't go to these dinners, so none of them.
Well, I didn't go to that one either.
Yeah. No, I never got invited to those dinners since a long time ago, like, I don't know, 20 years ago I went. But I can't stand those dinners. But I just mentioned you right off the top because you just had the common sense and, frankly, the courage to say, no, we're not doing this. And you were ridiculed.
It's just good manners, and something like that. Like, why would you hire someone to be grossly rude to certain people and to call that entertainment? Why would you do that? It's not edgy. Look, I love good humor. I love satire. People make fun of me. I laugh at it myself. Yeah, I know I had plastic surgery under my eyes. It's funny, okay? I got it. But
it's not that funny.
Well, okay, I know, but whatever. But there is a line, and picking on a kid with Down syndrome, that was just my line. That was just where I've had it. That's just where I wasn't going to go.
Greta Van Susteren, thank you so much for joining us, and just thanks for being my friend through thick and thin. You're a great person, and I just there are not that many women in this business who have been all that supportive sometimes, and maybe I haven't looked for the right people, but you've been a great friend, and I just can't wait to have you back on.
We have a great friendship. It's fun.
And it's
anyway.
It is fun.
You know what?
Yeah.
You know what? You thought you'd love a lot of women on the far left too. That's the thing people don't realize. Far left, far right, middle. Everybody is actually, when you strip away all the politics, everyone's sort of fun.
How about the fact that Rachel Maddow sent me a bouquet of flowers for my first day, and she said, "I suspect we don't agree on a lot. We don't agree on a lot, but we're gonna become friends." I said, "That's an awesome thing to do."
When she came, I sent her a bottle of scotch when she started. The women actually are sort of something.
I need that now. All right, Greta Van Susteren, thank you so much for joining us. We'll have you back for your book. Awesome appearance. When we come back, Louis C.K.'s movie was dropped by his distributor. That just came out. Don't go away. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. Make sure to tune in to the Ingraham Angle tonight. We are going to be continuing to cover the fallout from the Roy Moore accusations as he cries foul. And President Trump may have put on a good act himself in China and loving the pageantry, heads over to Vietnam and absolutely flattens the Chinese regarding their unfair trade practices and says, guess what? Those days are over. It's a new sheriff in town. I wouldn't want to be any of those poor pageant kids who put on the I shouldn't say dog, but dragon. Put on the dragon for the president. Get rid of them. They did not woo the president significantly. We must re-examine our pageant committee. Yeah, I'm telling you, I would not want to be any of the dancers, the singers, the performers, the opera folks, because President Xi must not be very happy. You're listening to The Laura Ingraham Show. Follow me on Twitter at Ingraham Angle.
Ancient Chinese secret, huh?
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
Make 'em laugh, make 'em laugh. Don't you know everyone wants to laugh? My dad said be an actor, my son.
These days, my problem is very simple. It's trying to find a place in my house where I can without somebody bothering me. And that's getting really difficult.
And be quite elite.
I think Louis is terrific.
Oh boy, he just made his life.
No,
he just made his life.
Mean, he's wonderful in such a self-deprecating but edgy kind of way. I mean, and basically good-hearted even when he's saying stuff that's pretty wrong.
Take a ball, but a wall, split a sea.
Barack Obama. This was after he said what he said about Sarah Palin's child being retarded. He was a retard that came out of her blank.
Yeah, no, he's a horrible person.
No. So, again, setting aside allegations that is he denying these allegations that he pleasured himself?
This is amazing. His spokesman came out and said he will not be addressing these allegations. He's not going to comment on the allegations. See, I don't think people in the public square, people in the public eye, who are charged with something like this, I don't know how you can't or won't respond. It seems to me he's going to have to respond at some point. Maybe it'll be opposite Oprah, but he will be responding. He will have to salvage what's left of his career. Orchard, the film company that bought his independent film, Daddy, I Love You, they dumped him today. They are not distributing the film. He's been dumped by HBO and FX, which carries his show. They are considering what to do. My guess is they're going to have to dump him too.
We just watched the preview of this film called Daddy, I Love You.
And we'll bring you some of the sound in a minute.
Yeah, and again, suffice it to say, this is the work product of a demented, depraved individual who was celebrated by everyone from the president to reporters to the Media Association, Radio and Television Correspondents Association, to Jon Stewart, who was loath to criticize him when asked last year about these rumors about him. And he said, I've known him for 30 years. I don't know anything about, It's a lot like what they said about Weinstein in the beginning. But when you look at this clip, preview of this film, it's, Raymond described
it concerns an aging TV writer, Louis C.K.
Yeah, but he has a friend,
and
John
he has
Malkovich.
a daughter, a 17-year-old daughter,
beautiful,
whom he introduces to a esteemed director, John Malkovich, who's 68 years old, and the 68-year-old begins dating his 17-year-old daughter. And so the conceit of the film is this okay? And no spoiler alert here, but since it's not getting distribution, I don't think I'm ruining anything. At the end of the film, he makes an impassioned plea for their relationship. The father of the 17-year-old girl makes a justification for what is statutory rape to the family, to friends, to everyone, that this relationship between a 68-year-old man and a 17-year-old child is perfectly acceptable. That's the payoff, or pardon the pun, climax of the movie.
In Islam it is.
Well, in many cultures it is, but not in America.
Not in America. This is more from this sordid situation. Let's listen.
Who makes me sick too is Sarah Palin when she talks about the joys and the challenges of having a Down syndrome child. Her baby is under 1 year old. It doesn't matter yet that it's retarded. But when she was standing on that stage at the convention holding a baby that just came out of her disgusting her retard making and she held it up. I hate her more than anybody. And she held it up and said, "This is really hard raising this. Really, it's a baby. Stick your in its mouth."
He's a horrible
Oh,
man.
no.
See, I don't think this is. I don't even crack a smile.
There's nothing funny about it. It's enraging, is what it is.
It's just juvenile trash talk. You can hear this crap at a high school. Stupid kids say things like this about one another when they're drunk. I mean,
they don't say things like this. Not most people. I don't say anything like this.
But you see how it's the exaltation of the base, and allowing, and it also becomes, and we said this last night on the show. It normalizes what was previously deviant or aberrant behavior, not
degenerate,
outside the bounds of decency.
The word degenerate is the word I'm going to use. Degenerate. The man is a total degenerate. 855-40-LAURA. Did you ever watch his comedy? Do you think I'm being unfair? Just on the comedy. Forget about the allegations that he pleasured himself in front of women and aspiring actresses.
It was apparently an open secret. We found a clip from his show, Louis, where he is on a mock panel, and he's with Greg Gutfeld and on a mock panel, and they have someone he's defending masturbation, and there's a so-called Christian spokesman, and she's against masturbation, and they're having a debate. I'm like, why would anyone
oh my God.
even have this as a subject for a show?
Gutfeld
but it
was on this?
Well, he was, as an actor, he played himself having these people debate on his show. Very strange. Oh, Mitt Romney, innocent until proven guilty. He's speaking out on the Roy Moore of criminal convictions, not elections. I believe Lee Kaufman. Her account is too serious to ignore. Moore is unfit for office and should step aside. So, I guess
establishment wants
Romney wants Roy Moore out, saying get out. He believes.
I think it's why am I relevant right now?
Well, who made him Perry Mason? I mean,
first of all, he said that's for court of law. He is apparently this is he an elder still in the church? So maybe as an elder he has special X-ray powers into the minds and hearts of people, and as an elder he can discern this, what is true and what is not. I guess what Mitt Romney is saying is it doesn't matter if it's true.
There is this odd confluence between the pop culture and politics now with these two charges. The New York Times are trying to set them up as one. You see them on the cover.
Yeah, on the cover.
Roy
They're next
Moore,
to each other. By the way, the title of the Louis C.K. one is Detailing Lewd Acts, 5 Women accuse comic of misconduct. Then under Roy Moore, GOP reels as sex allegations arise against Senate candidate. The word sex charges, sex allegations, that's used in the title about Moore 39 years ago, but with Louis C.K. it's detailing lewd acts. 5 women accuse a comic of misconduct. Isn't that interesting, the titles?
Yeah. Well, and again, these women aren't alleging rape, but the fact is, he did, if these allegations are true, Roy Moore plied a young girl with alcohol, took her to his home, and felt her up. Took her clothes off and felt her up. Those are the allegations. Now, is that a deal breaker for his nomination? He's denying all these charges. And what should the next step be?
Well, I think, and also, the Republicans have to understand this, that if a 39-year-old charge like this, and this is the one about the 14-year-old, if this is all it takes to take someone down, I mean, you know what I'm saying, if it's not true, if it's just a charge, we don't know if it is or not, and frankly, I guess all the Louis C.K. people could be lying. They could all be lying as well.
Right.
All of them. So we just have to know where we're going with this.
Well, I mean, my feeling is this.
It is pretty specific about Roy Moore. She is very detailed.
Well, so are the people who are charging Louis C.K. Here's the problem. If there is veracity to the charges, then these men should step aside and suffer the consequences. If they are fallacious, then they are owed an apology. But as Clarence Thomas said so many years ago, where do you go to get your reputation back?
You don't go anywhere because there's no way of getting your reputation back.
And that's the problem. That's the problem.
That's where we're going. But,
with all of this.
But I think there are a lot of men who are listening to this today who have led, no one's perfect, but you've not engaged in this behavior, and you're an employer or a supervisor.
Right.
And I bet a lot of people are worried about someone who's disgruntled, who wants to stick a knife in your back years later. And if you're a man, you have to be really careful, just period. Complimenting someone, calling someone at home. Did you get that assignment done? Did you get that report done? I need that in the morning. He's bullying me. Or, you have to be careful.
No, everything. You worry about everything.
I have talked to a few men in my crazy schedule over the last couple of weeks, and both of them have started small businesses, one much bigger than the other. One in Cleveland, another good friend of mine down in Southwest Florida. Both of them have said, I mean, this just doesn't give us all warm and fuzzies about hiring women.
No.
Because we're afraid. Now, is that unfair for them to say, or is that unwise, or is that logical given the climate we're dealing with? And again, as I said last night, these charges are true. Then it was 39 years ago for more. I guess she asked, "Can he drive me home now?" And he said yes, and he just took her home. He didn't rape her, but he felt her up, and she's a child.
Right.
If this happened, and how does a grown man? I just go back. How does a grown man engage in? I mean, this is just depravity. This is documented through the last thousands of years of literature.
Right. Exactly.
This is the
from Lolita on, or
from Lolita on, and celebrated
by Woody Allen.
Woody Allen,
and in this Louis C.K. movie. Play the clip of "Daddy, I Love You." This is the movie that was just pulled. This is the movie. Now let's just say it. It's Louis C.K.'s daughter, who's 17, who's very pretty, starts dating his buddy John Malkovich, who himself is a psychopath. Sorry. A 68-year-old director.
Who's a 68-year-old director, and so Louis C.K.'s daughter dates a 68-year-old. She's 17. She's underage. By the end of the movie, apparently Louis C.K.'s all on board with this and fine with it. Let's listen.
You're with Leslie Goodwin?
Isn't that weird?
No, it's not that weird. He likes young girls.
Yes, he does.
China. She is a child. She knows nothing.
China is a minor.
A minor what?
I mean, everybody's a pervert. I'm a pervert. We're all perverts. Who cares?
Yeah, no, we're not all perverts. Everybody's not a pervert.
See, but you see what it is? It's normalizing deviancy.
This is my whole point.
Normalizing deviant behavior, and this has been going on for a long, long time.
And predators see this stuff, and they go, you see, I'm not alone. I exposing myself to women with unwanted advances, chasing children. All of this is perfectly acceptable. It's not acceptable. And as the father of a daughter, if a 68-year-old man were pursuing my teenage daughter, he would find the bottom of a staircase fast.
I would,
and we'd start at the top.
Right.
So, I mean, this is. I'm with you. I don't get the challenge or the attraction to a child. But I do think there are people who are wired that way. They're called deviants.
Yeah, they're deviants.
But we shouldn't encourage this. We should discourage that.
But what I would also say to all of this is, when we spend a lot of time in schools and in the world of psychology and psychoanalysis, justifying sexualizing young people, allowing them to choose the gender of their choice, bringing them into a conversation before they're ready about sexuality, then is anyone really surprised that we have these sexual scenarios involving deviant adult men? Deviant adult men, the society is seeing them as sexualized. You walk through Times Square in New York, or you walk into a mall in Northern Virginia, and one of the first things you're greeted with when you walk by Victoria's Secret is an underage girl on a huge piece of poster board, lit up all pretty, in a extremely sexual position. Look, beyond come hither, it's like, come do me. That's basically what it looks like. And when I take my kids to the mall...
And they're all of 15, these models.
Oh, maybe. When I take my kids to the mall, I've now figured out a way to avoid that particular storefront. But it's a big one. It's a big storefront, Victoria's Secret. And All the kids are playing, and this is what they look at. And my sons, we walk by, they, of course, the boys, they're little boys, they look at this, and they're innocent. And they look at this, and they think, what's this?
Mm-hmm.
What's this? These look like little girls. It's very twisted. So we are sexualizing children, and we're normalizing in the way we represent them and present them in ads, in on screens, on the cell phone video, on TV. They become little sexual beings who can declare their own gender, make their own decisions about their own sexuality at age 6, 7. And they go into school and they say, suddenly I'm a different gender. And everybody has to get up and applaud. Now, are we applauding for what? They're choosing their sexual path. That's what they're doing. Not just choosing to wear a pair of dungarees to school with a short cropped haircut. That's not what they're choosing. 855-40-LAURA. Your reaction to this and a lot more. Remember the Ingraham angle tonight. What did you think of the show last night? I want to hear from you, especially our friend Arash Aramesh from San Francisco, who talked over me most of the time. Next time I have to, I guess, cut his mic and say, let me talk first, and then you can talk. That was a little uncomfortable, but there you go. We'll take a break. Don't go away.
Nothing portentous or polite. Tragedy tomorrow, comedy tonight.
For those of you tuning in to see my interview with Louis C.K. tonight, I have some bad news. Then I have some really bad news. Louis canceled his appearance here tonight because the New York Times broke this story today. 5 women are accusing Louis C.K. of sexual misconduct. When reached for comment, Jesus said, I don't want to hear about it, I was a big fan.
Something offensive, something for everyone.
Why is that funny?
It's not funny.
So Stephen Colbert made an excuse for his pal, but he didn't have
It's okay to expose yourself to women and masturbate in front of them because Jesus is a big fan.
In just a moment, we'll tell you what he said about Roy Moore, which is just a little bit different. Let's go to Marianne in Arizona, line 1. Marianne.
And I don't know whether he's guilty or not, but I've recently, for the first time in a long time, seen some comedy, and it wasn't funny, and it looked like they were just trying to outdo themselves in a degenerate way. I think there's a culture of degeneracy in comedy today, and somebody ought to look at it.
Bingo. That's what we've been talking about on the Ingraham angle. The product coming out of Hollywood justifies in many ways, or sets the table, at the very least, for this type of deviancy. So we shouldn't be surprised that this is coming out of there. Donald Trump in Asia. He was called a sycophant to China by this guest on TV last night with me and other liberals saying, he's bowing down to China.
And Madeleine Albright, etc. And boy, did he hit the Chinese over the head with a 2x4 when he went to Vietnam. So the pageantry is over and the tough talk has begun. Now the measures are going to start kicking in. We'll bring that to you. Larry Kudlow up next.
Hey humans, David Smalley here from the Dogma Debate Podcast, right here on Podcast One, where we talk about all the things you're not supposed to discuss at work: religion, politics, abortion, racism, slavery, and that's only when we open the Bible. We discuss Islam, Islamophobia. What does that even mean? We chat with vegans, animal rights activists, and even visit factory farms to see it for ourselves. I invite people from multiple backgrounds to convert me into their worldview. But as long as they are okay with being respectfully challenged, you better bring your evidence. And I never lose sight of how both the left and the right are seeming to lose their minds. So basically, we're solving all the world's problems right here on Dogma Debate. And you've been missing it. Watch our 360 virtual reality videos on the Podcast One app and download Dogma Debate on iTunes, Stitcher, or PodcastOne.com.
Simply put, we have not been treated fairly by the World Trade Organization. Organizations like the WTO can only function properly when all members follow the rules and respect the sovereign rights of every member. We cannot achieve open markets if we do not ensure fair market access. In the end, unfair trade undermines us all.
So much for Donald Trump being the patsy of the Chinese. I love this San Francisco leftist last night on the show trying to take me on. Oh, he's just sucking up to Xi. It was disgusting. And my Ingraham angle commentary last night said, well, this is probably called something like diplomatic strategy. This is the deft way of dealing with a power that is thousands and thousands of years old. We think we're the king of the hill. Well, we believe we are, and I believe we are, but we're only 240-something years old. They're thousands of years old. It's not like this is their first rodeo over in Beijing. So the president was very happy to take part in the pageantry and had a great time. Wants to be friends. This is the good thing about Trump. He does want to be friends with everybody. He shook hands with Putin today at this Asian Pacific economic meeting. And he should. We want to have relationships, if we can, with every great power, every big power. We won't agree with them on everything, but on some issues we may be able to work together for the betterment of the American people, our security, our economy. And if we can, then we should. That's his view. It's very pragmatic, very different from the Bushes, certainly very different from Obama. And the idea that the Chinese are happier that Donald Trump's in power than they were when Obama was in power. When Obama was in power, they were, for the most part, unchecked in trade and in their military advancement, for the most part. And now Donald Trump's like, oh, no, we're not doing this way anymore. So we get why you're doing it, but we're not doing it this way. Joining us now, Larry Kudlow, economist, host of the Kudlow Report, one of our absolute favorite writers. Larry, how are you, my friend? How are you doing?
I'm good, Laura, and you know you've gotten off to a great start on the Fox show. Really, I've been watching. It's flowing, and you're getting the full Laura. So I think it's great.
Thank you so much. I wish I could steal you as a guest, but I know you're otherwise committed.
Well, I'm still going to work on that.
Excellent. Oh, I love that. Because Larry, we have such good chemistry, and I think television, whether it's the sitcoms, the great sitcoms of our time, or the great rock bands, it's about chemistry. I mean, you have to have chemistry with your guests, even if it's friction. Otherwise, it kind of I like the chemistry with the guests, don't you? And you have people on, people that you know and fight with or agree with. It's fun.
I know, and one of the things I always stressed on the TV show and now on the radio is that you bring on guests who disagree, but you try to maintain some civility and you let the guests talk. That's really important. I don't like folks who shout down the guest. But you also then, once they talk and put their views out, you know, don't be sparing. Get your view out. You're a conservative. You can remain a conservative. People love you for that. That's your so-called base. As long as you let the others talk, I think it's great. And I think that's what you're doing. I think you come by it naturally.
I'm trying to. Thank you. Let's talk about...
We'll learn. It took me a long time to learn it. So.
I'm getting there. 20 years in, Larry. I'm getting there. Let's talk about what happened in China. The president was receiving ridicule and scorn for seemingly going like a ping pong ball. On the one hand, he was so tough on China during the campaign, and then Xi comes to Mar-a-Lago and they have all this fun together and golfing, and then at the pageantry in Beijing, the president seemed to be bowing down, not literally but figuratively, to China. Then 3 a.m. East Coast time, he gives that speech in Vietnam, which is just it's an America first in trade, and he wants to engage with the rest of the world, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough when you're cheating America under Donald Trump. What's your takeaway?
Well, I really think he played his cards very well on this trip with China and elsewhere, because you're operating on different channels here, different levels. So the golf and all that stuff, he's developing a personal relationship with Xi. That's good. But a personal relationship doesn't preclude disagreements on important policy matters. You know, with respect to trade, for example, the president spent a lot of time in that speech that you mentioned talking about China stealing the intellectual property rights of U.S. firms. And this is the key problem with China. And a lot of that comes, by the way, not from the state of China, the federal level, but the provinces, which are very corrupt. And as Trump noted, if you go into a province and set up a factory or something, They insist, number one, that there's a partnership, and number two, that all your plans have to be laid out so they can see exactly, what your technologies are, and then they'll go ahead and steal it. So that has to stop. And I think Trump is entirely right there. On the other hand, with respect to foreign policies, I think Trump is building a good enough policy relationship so that China will continue to help us with North Korea. That's really important. Their central bank joined with our sanctions on U.S. banking sanctions on North Korea, which pushes them outside the dollar zone, which essentially pushes them outside the world banking system. And it looks to me, I haven't seen anything to counter this, that China's going to go along with that, and that could be huge. So I think Trump is operating at different levels, and I think he's playing his hand very well.
Yeah, I think, and I hate the phrase three-dimensional chess because it's so overused, but it's a lot of interesting strategy. And you saw Bob Lighthizer statement today about how we're no longer going to allow the gaming of the system that's been happening, and the United States will respond in kind. I think we'll know a lot more when they return, Larry, to see if this 301 investigation really begins to take off. That's the Federal Fair Trade Act of 1974, and this is where they will go above and beyond in taking China to task for the IP theft especially. So we'll see where that goes. The rubber's going to meet the road when they come home from this trip. Let's move on to the tax reform debate, because the Senate comes out with their version of tax reform yesterday. It differs from the House bill in some key ways. Mortgage deduction goes back to $1 million. They have 7 rates, Larry, instead of 4. And there's some other key provisions that are changed. I have a problem with the Congress leaving town for days and days and days, early for Thanksgiving, long periods of time off, when the average American gets about 8 days. Now, I know it's not technically vacation, but it's a lot of time outside of Washington when they have a lot in Washington to actually do. What's your sense of how this is
that's one
going?
of my biggest beefs with the whole show down there, is they do take too much time off, way too much time off. Now, Mitch McConnell said, a couple of weeks back, that they would work a 5-day week and maybe some weekends. That's a good thing for him to say, but as you know, now they're going to leave. And, for example, the Senate Finance Committee releases the so-called chairman's mark yesterday, but they're going to wait a week, I think, for the actual committee markup. Now, that's not good, because we know now that there's going to have to be a conference to resolve differences between the House approach and the Senate approach. The hope was, I spoke to a Republican Senate breakfast. I had all the big shots in there. It was very good, and I was honored and got my points across. But I asked them a couple times, can you get comity with the House and maybe avoid a conference, which is what they did on the budget, to jam it through. And, the response was mixed, and now we see it's not going to happen. There's not going to be a avoidance of conference. So that's too bad, and they ought to just work through this. The GOP cannot blow this, Laura. They cannot. I mean, this is for economic reasons and political reasons. They cannot miss this opportunity, and it has to be done by year end. If it goes over to next year, and a couple of these senators agreed with me on this, folks are just not going to believe them. Not going to believe them.
Larry Kudlow, thank you so much for joining us. I know you have TV to do. From the Kudlow Report, one of our dear, dear friends, great thinkers on the economy and beyond. Larry, thanks so much. We'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show. When's the last time you've been through TSA, and what was your experience with TSA at the airport? All copacetic or a little bit concerning? I'll tell you something that shocked me. Don't go away.
Let us choose a future of patriotism, prosperity, and pride. Let us choose wealth and freedom over poverty and servitude. Let us choose a free and open Indo-Pacific.
An undercover operation revealed TSA screening at airports fails most of the time. Investigators found that screeners miss test weapons and bombs at baggage checkpoints more often than not.
Go!
In recent undercover tests of multiple airport security checkpoints by the Department of Homeland Security, inspectors and said screeners, their equipment or their procedures failed more than half of the time. Oh, just, at least half of the bombs get stopped. At least half of the guns get stopped. They stop me if my shampoo bottle is 4.1 ounces. What do you mean why am I the one always stopped then? I've gotten felt up more than Louis C.K.'s friends at the TSA. Do you mind if I? Oh no, yeah. Who wants to give me a cigarette after this? I mean, what are you doing to me? I mean, they are the underwire bra. I mean, they are very randy with their pat downs at TSA. I don't like those pat downs.
It's invasive.
It is.
I like when they say, "Now I'm going to be reaching up toward your private parts." I'm like, no, those are my private parts. They come right up. I'm like, no. You've achieved your end. Thanks.
In my end.
It's very. The whole thing is unseemly.
They should privatize this thing. This should not be a government. This should be
not
private.
Protecting us at all.
No, because they will not do the type of profiling that needs to be done.
Which is done in Israel and other places.
And in fact, a lot of the people, I want some of the TSA people to be checked more carefully.
I want to look into the Sky Valets.
Oh, the Sky Valet, which take Raymond's bag from him
because
it's too large.
Not only
that's a cartel, that Sky Valet. If people don't know what we're talking about, these are the people who look you up and down as you're approaching TSA. You're not even in TSA yet.
Before you enter the TSA corral.
They profile blondes there, too. They think we're so stupid that we can't see through their innate bias.
And they're really dumb.
They don't like the overhead bags. They don't like any bag that is like a Samsonite.
Oh, if it's bigger than your phone, you can't bring it on.
Your bag could have 5 people could live in it. Your bag. Raymond's like, it fits in the overhead.
It does fit in the overhead.
That fits.
It does.
Raymond's always asking the flight attendant, can we put this up in front with your bags? I'm like, those days are over. Or you could put it in the coat closet. I'm like, oh, okay, Raymond.
I have a lot of stewardess friends. That's how I make friends.
No.
I buy dinners.
And then Raymond's always struggling to put the bag and shove it in that overhead, like on the United Express flights. That overhead isn't big enough for your.
The overhead is now like a shelf. It's a tiny little nothing. It's like your medicine cabinet deep.
You can't put anything in there. But the TSA has got to be privatized. We've been arguing for that since 2002. When they pushed through this TSA monstrosity, the money we spend on TSA, yet we can't look at someone like Mohammed Atta in the eyes and say, you're evil, you're not getting on the plane. Like, when I go to Israel and when I have been to Istanbul, you feel like you're on speed dating with these people. I mean, they ask you questions like, whoa, where have you been? Who are your friends here? When's the last book you read? What's your favorite website? Quick, go. I mean, they're very intent on finding out who you are and why you're traveling. And in Israel, when AJ and I went and did the radio show from Israel, we're going to go back to Israel, by the way, probably early in the new year. We'll take the TV show and radio there. AJ and I were detained for an hour and a half at the Tel Aviv airport. They took our microphones, they took our camera bags, they took it all apart. I mean, I'm talking unscrew the top of the microphone, take the guts of the microphone out. And I said, oh my God, this is like a $2,000 microphone. Can you be careful? They looked at us like, don't talk to us. And it was really scary because I thought we were going to miss a flight. But on the other hand, I was really impressed. And we know what also they did? They put everything back in the bag. Like they had a photographic memory about where everything went. And it was like time lapse. They put everything back in the bag, zipped it in about 2 seconds. And it did take an hour and a half to get through everything. But then they put it all back perfectly, and they were perfectly kind and courteous when they sent us on our way. But before that, don't touch the bag after don't touch it. I said, well, can you not, that's my new blouse. Don't touch the bag. Oh no, they were, it was unnerving.
They mean business.
I felt guilty after. I was like, maybe I did do something. No, but they make you really nervous, but it's good. It is kind of good. And it's a lot more effective than, hiring, whoever they can find off of Craigslist or whatever
those Sky Valet people and some of the TSA people.
Well,
not all of them. Some of them are very nice.
Here's a question for you. Should TSA people be able to speak English well? Because there are a lot of people at Dulles Airport whose English is horrific. horrific. They can't speak the English language well at all. And that's not cool. 855-40-LAURA. Alabamans rise up in defense of Roy Moore. We want to hear from you. 855-40-LAURA.
Thanks for listening to the Laura Ingraham Show podcast. Download new episodes every week at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
What's going on, man?
Hi, guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the team, Loveline, man. You guys remember us from back in the day? Well, we're doing a pod, and we're doing it every day.
And we've been doing it for a while, and if I hear one more time people saying, God, I loved you and Adam together on Loveline, and I'm like, yeah, we're doing a podcast. Will you please just join us at the Adam and Dr. Drew Show, please? At AdamDrDrewShow.com. It's a great show. Come on now. Only on Podcast One. That's us, Adam and Dr. Drew Show. Just like the old days.
Doctor's orders.
Oh man, you're funny.
Yep. All right, let's go save some babies.
Let's do it.